Boom! We're back, and today we're finishing up with Mike, and then we're moving on to some white belts and their roles. In the last video, we saw Matt win his division by using an omoplata to get the gold medal and look very fancy. Then we moved on to Mike, who went into the advanced no-gi division as a blue belt. He lost to a brown belt in the first match, but he won by an armbar in the second. Naturally, I had to end it on a cliffhanger where Mike was going with his third opponent. But first, make sure to check out my link in the description so you can get awesome gear and rash guards from my sponsor and look very cool like the people in this video. Mike is starting off in the middle of the mat after he just got mount after a quick takedown and side control pass, and they had to be recentered as they're at the edge of the mat. He brings his leg up as he's looking for a quick triangle or maybe even an armbar, but neither of them are available, so he goes back to flattening his opponent and mount. He's hoping his opponent is going to move a little bit so he can open up an opportunity for a submission. Mike even goes to knee mount, but then he quickly returns to regular mount as his opponent is not really moving at all from bottom. He brings the leg up once again, but as he does this, his opponent turns out and Mike has to go to side control so he can maintain top control. He puts himself in reverse ride as he's looking for another mount attempt to get some more points, but his opponent is doing a good job keeping his knees high, so it's harder for Mike to get his leg over. I'd like to see Mike pull the leg and then go over the leg once he has it, but instead they go towards the front head position and he's looking towards a choke. His opponent has a pretty good grip over his hands, so the choke is not going to be easy to do, and he's able to work out of this front head position because he had such good hand control. As they stand up, both men are looking for better ties so they can set up their next takedown. Mike has a great point lead here, but I'd still like to see him get another takedown because it's always great to solidify your lead with even more points. They're both doing some hand tying here before Mike decides to go for his own shot. Once his opponent pushes into him, he changes his level, he pulls out the leg, and he quick gets the takedown and it gets recentered in the middle of the mat. Now the first goal in closed guard is to open the guard, and Mike's doing a good job of this by pushing his knee into the middle towards the butt. Then he's looking to stand up, which applies a lot of pressure on the opponent's hips. His opponent is also helping him out because he wants to return to the standing position as well and re-engage in the wrestling battle. Anytime you have wrestling, you need to have good ties so you can set up some good entries to get into your opponent and then set up your shot. Mike is doing just that. He's looking to snap his opponent around, grab some drags, and move the arms around as he's looking to set up another takedown. Mike is able to hear my coaching advice and he starts setting up the blast double as I'm calling for it. All he has to do here is get under his opponent, shove his head into the chest, and drive him over like a football tackle. That takedown earned Mike 2 more points, which brings the score to 13-0. And now Mike's in a familiar position where he's working inside the closed guard and he's attempting to open this guard once again. Mike is doing the right thing by trying to insert his knee, push on the hips, push on the legs, trying to open this guard. His opponent doesn't want to open his guard to set up any attacks despite being down 13 points and needs a Hail Mary submission. There's no need for Mike to work too hard because he has such a great lead, but he does finish it off with a nice side control pass, and then he ends the match with a nice score of 16-0. About 10 minutes pass by and then Mike is going into his next and final no-gi match. Mike was going against this purple belt who just tapped out the brown belt that Mike lost to in his first round. This match was very important for Mike because it was his last match of the day. He also still had a chance of getting first place, even if it meant he had to tie for first place. The two shook hands and got into it right away. Both men engage in the standing position and they both want to get the first takedown to set up a nice 2-point lead. I love seeing when both guys want to work the takedown and some wrestling. His opponent quick gets a front head on Mike and then he's going to try and snap him down from here after Mike fails on a shot. His opponent wastes no time from the failed shot and quickly spins behind him to set up a nice takedown to get his 2-point lead going. His opponent is also looking to climb the back immediately. He doesn't care for the hooks, he just wants to get the choke, and I also like seeing that. You can tell he's a wrestler. But Mike does a nice job here and he's able to push off of him and he lands up in top side control. Unfortunately, Mike gets no points despite being in side control after he was just taken down. Since he was taken down, he was clearly on bottom, and now he's on top in a much better position. Mike holds side control for a pretty long time, but his opponent is doing a nice job trying to get on his side so he can escape side control. He brings his elbow down to the mat, and this gives him an extra post. With this post, he can start working towards his knees and going towards the front head. Mike goes for the guillotine, but unfortunately the head slips out, and because the head slipped out and Mike ended on bottom, his opponent technically gets the sweep. I don't know how that counts as sweep, the side control position didn't, but nonetheless, Mike is now down 0-4. Mike was looking for a triangle, but then they had to get reset because his opponent had some blood and they had to wipe it off. His opponent checks the score and he can see that he's clearly up 4-0, so Mike has to get moving quickly. It's very easy to sit on top in closed guard and put your hands in the armpits to push against them, but not get swept. Mike is moving his legs around, he's able to get his legs around the shoulder, and he's looking towards a triangle. However, it's tough to do a triangle when they have a strong posture, and that's exactly what his opponent is doing. He's keeping a strong base and a strong posture, and Mike is going to try anything he can to try and get this move going by pushing off the mat to set up a better angle. Now his opponent is trying to push the knee down at the same time and looking for some some passes, but he's not trying that hard. He knows about his point lead. He would like to pass, I'm sure, but there's no need to overexert yourself and put yourself in a bad position. Mikey's working out towards his side because he's looking for a new angle where he can set up a sweep. This doesn't work on his left side, so he goes towards his right shoulder, and once he's on his right shoulder, he starts trying to scoop under the leg. He gets back to close guard, and as soon as he's here, he hits a beautiful hip-in sweep to go straight to mount. The only caveat is that he's not in mount long enough. You have to hold the position for 3 seconds, and his opponent's able to get his knees in and start setting up some underhooks for some butterfly sweeps. I agree with the scoring that he shouldn't have gotten mount points, but he still should have gotten points earlier for side control. Nonetheless, he got 2 points for the sweep, and now the score is 4-2. Mike knows he has to move here because the round is almost over and he's in top and close guard. As we remember from the match with the brown belt, when he's on top and close guard and the opponent has a lead, the opponent just wants to control the posture and keep the legs locked. That's exactly what his opponent is doing here. Mike is trying anything he can to get out. His opponent eventually threw up a triangle, but the round ends and he lost 4-2. Even though Mike lost, he did really well for a blue belt in the advanced division, especially when this is only his second tournament. Also, it's pretty cool that Mike got to medal and he placed higher than the brown belt did that he lost to because of how many points he scored against other opponents. Nonetheless, this concludes our saga with Mike and we move on to the white belts. Our first white belt is Josh, and he prefers to go by silverback, but I'm not quite sure if I qualify to describe him that way. Josh's first match started off really quickly where he started getting his own takedown. His opponent was constantly grabbing the head, so he was meant to be taken down. However, we have a different ref, so that means the takedown description is a little bit different. He was not awarded any points despite putting him down in the turtle position and then getting on top of his opponent. After Josh's takedown, they ended this interesting position. Josh is trying to pass the half guard and his opponent is trying to take his back. I was giving Josh such beautiful advice on how to get out of this spot where all he had to do was take his right hand and peel that hook and then he could easily pass into side control. Unfortunately, Josh did not want to listen to me and he wanted to keep trying to run around the guard while he kept his hips in the air. His opponent was able to work out and get on towards his back. Luckily, Josh was able to spin quickly to retain top control and go into his opponent's guard. However, the score was still 0-0. I was happy to see that his opponent was pretty active from the guard position. He immediately went up for a triangle and he was trying to submit Josh really quickly. I was telling Josh to keep his posture high, and I could tell he was trying to do just that. However, his opponent did a nice job by keeping him low, and then he transitioned to go under the leg, and he swept him by going straight into mount. He even kept the triangle while going into mount, and now Josh had a completely different battle, trying to fight off this mounted triangle. Josh was trying his hardest to bridge out of this position, and generally my advice is to trying to go back into closed guard because it is dang near impossible to get out of a mounted triangle. He was able to push a little bit, and he could get back to the guard position, but he was still locked in this triangle until he was able to push the leg with his arms and free his head. Josh tries to pass his opponent's guard immediately, but his opponent times him well and pushes him over for a sweep, but somehow doesn't get any points. Now you have to remember that these guys are white belts, so I like the intensity they're going at, but their moves aren't always the best. His opponent is immediately on top and he's pushing directly into Josh just to create some heavy pressure on top. Josh is not opening his guard to set up any attacks, and his opponent is doing a good job staying on top because he has a nice point lead. Josh is able to start working on a far side Kimura, which is hard to see on the camera, but he listens to my advice when I'm telling him to rotate on his hips. Once he has this Kimura, he's able to rotate on top of his opponent and get his own sweep, but also not get any points. He does lose the Kimura as they're going towards the edge of the mat, and they're going to have to be re-centered in the middle because they're falling into the tables, and that's not going to be good for anyone. They get reset in the middle of the mat, but unfortunately there's not much time left. Josh is still working on top in this position, but he's down the scorecards and he doesn't have enough time to work where he can set up a better attack or go to mount. So unfortunately, Josh lost this one, but you're going to have to watch the next episode if you want to see Josh go in full silverback mode when he gets absolutely enraged from his opponent.